Hi, welcome to CISSP Nights YouTube channel. Please subscribe our channel to get daily questions and answers. So let's start. Which of the following security architecture models are you most likely to implement to avoid covert channel attacks? Is it A. Clark-Wilson, Tig-Grant, Chinese wall, or non-interference, which basically avoids the covert channel attacks? So you know it's not a model to avoid. Okay, we'll choose option D. Let's see the answer. Yes. Most likely, you would implement the non-interference model to avoid covert channel attacks. Covert channel is a means of communication between processes which violates a system security policy. They can be also created by adding the data to unused fields of TCP header. Okay, we won't use Chinese wall, which is also known as Brewer-Nash security model, which is designed to basically reduce or mitigate conflicts of interest. We will also not use Tig-Grant model, which is a protection model, uses a directed graph as an access control model. Okay, we will also not implement Clark-Wilson model, as we know, because subjects use programs to access the objects. So the subjects must be authorized to access the programs, and the programs must be authorized to modify the data. Okay, so Clark-Wilson uses separation of duties to ensure that no single user alone can modify the sensitive data. Okay, so to avoid covert channel attacks, we use non-interference. Let's proceed. Which of the following is the primary reason you should not locate your disaster recovery site in the same city as your primary site? Okay, each location should be staffed by different employees. Okay, the cost of maintaining the location would be too expensive. Yes, both locations could be affected by the same natural disaster. A hacker could more easily infiltrate both locations. So main reason should be having two sites in the same city. That it should not be affected by the same disaster. Let's say any tornado happens, earthquake happens. So the both sides should be in at least different cities or somewhere more far away from each other. See the answer? Yes, the primary reason you should not locate your DR site in the same city as your primary site is that both locations could be affected by the same natural disaster, and it includes events like earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, and tornadoes. Okay, so yeah, a hacker can impact both sites anyways, even if they are not in the same city. So the main primary reason, like, they can be affected by the same natural disaster if they are located in the same city. Let's move to the next question. Which of the following object-oriented programming concepts enable two objects which are based on the same class to process data independently? Which are based on the same class? It should be poly-instantiation. Yeah, in which the objects which are based on the same class can process data independently. Okay, the OOP languages use objects instead of procedures and functions. Okay, encapsulation, which prevents the accidental data access by ensuring that class defines only the data which it requires. Same inheritance also is not the answer. Let's move forward. When planning for the possibility of disaster, which is for the most cost-effective alternate site solution, that is MAA, Mutual Assistance Agreement. Okay, it is also known as backup site agreement or reciprocal agreement. We do a legal arrangement between two organizations in which they can share each other network resources. It's most cost-effective alternative solution. Okay, which of the following system security techniques is not typically used to isolate subjects and objects from each other? Is it cryptography, layering? Not typically used is cryptography. Yes. Let's move forward. Which of the following terms best describes a threat that involves hard coding secret authentication credentials into an application? While like coding for any application, is it data mining? No, data mining means we are extracting the data. Is it backdoor, data remnants, or logic bomb? Logic bomb will be called like if then else statement. If it matches with any specific condition, then logic bomb will occur. So let's choose option B, backdoor. Yeah. So backdoor is a threat which involves hard coding secret authentication credentials into an application. It basically allows an attacker to complete remote access to a system, enabling the attacker to use the system in a similar manner as an authorized user. Okay. Logic bomb is a threat which usually involves malicious code which is contained in a software. When the logic events occurs or the arrival of a specific date on a calendar, so it's like a scheduled attack. You can attack it once any condition matches with a specific date or specific event. So hardcode secret authentication credentials describes a backdoor. Let's move forward. These the following classes of fire suppression systems can be used to flammable liquids. Flammable liquid means it catches the fire. So what fire suppression systems we will use? We should know about them. For liquids, it should be class B. Let's see the answer. Yes, class B suppression system, fire suppression system can be used on flammable liquids in both US and UK. And there are different substances A, B, C, E, D, F. These are different classes of UK. So we should almost memorize these fire suppression systems. Let's move forward. Which is following that describe the reason to configure password minimum age requirements. To configure the number of failed logon attempts, to set the amount of time old password will be stored. It's like password history. To set the amount of time before a user must select a new password. To ensure that users cannot immediately change new passwords back to old passwords. Okay, see the answer. Yeah, the best reason to configure password minimum age requirements is to ensure that users cannot immediately change new passwords back to the old passwords. So this prevents users from circumventing password specific policies by manually changing a new unexpired password. Let's move forward. Which of the following is least likely to be excluded from publicly available source code? Least likely to be excluded. Let's see the answer. Private functions. A private function is least likely to be excluded because functions are snippets of code that either make a decision or perform a specific calculation. API keys are informations which should not be included in publicly available source code. Username passwords also should not be included in public available source codes. So except private functions, we can exclude all others infos like API keys, passwords, and usernames. Okay, so that's why it's very important to read the question twice. Okay, Let's move forward. Which of the following password types changes automatically at consistent intervals? That is, dynamic passwords, they change at consistent intervals and regular intervals of time. Which of the following best describes the implementation of a corrective access control? Corrective access control. Is it mandating a pre-employment drug screening, implementing CCTV cameras, using antivirus software, or restoring data from backup media? So the answer is using antivirus software. Of the choices provided, using antivirus software best describes the implementation of corrective access control. Why? Because the damage is done. So that's why it's very important to focus on the word best. It best describes the implementation of a corrective access control. Like you got the virus attack and now you want to correct it, you have to use antivirus software. So we should just remember these 7 categories of access controls, like corrective, deterrent, preventive, compensating, detective, corrective, and recovery. Okay, let's move forward. Last question. In which of the following scenarios would accessories be more likely to perform a qualitative risk assessment? And accessories full support of the management, extensive experience, can use mathematical values, it's used in quantitative basically, or they don't have much time to perform. Okay, yeah, qualitative means usually when they have less time, then they will perform the quality because they don't require a lot of numerical data for results which are descriptive rather than measurable, easy to perform and require less time than quantitative risk assessments, and they are also recommended who don't have much experience performing risk assessments but have extensive experience with the system and business processes. You are a security specialist at a bank. Which of the following is not a means of protecting bank tellers who face the public? Is it bulletproof glasses, security cameras, identification badges, or a locked entry door to the tellers? So badges should not be the means of protecting the tellers from the public. Okay, they are just a means of controlling access to specific areas of a bank which are restricted to employees only. So if you want to protect the tellers, you should have a bulletproof glass between tellers and the public. You should have security cameras installed in the bank and locked entry door as well, so no public can interrupt or disturb the bank tellers. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you. Take good care.